From Perth, Australia, and broadcasting around the world, you're listening to The O Show with your host, Oren McCory. The O Show is a no-nonsense podcast bringing you the best advice on training, mindset, and nutrition to supercharge your efforts in the gym, the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. Don't forget to share this episode on your social media. Now, let's get to it.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, guys, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to today's episode of The O Show. And I have on today my good friend, Joe Parish, who is the high performance coach based out of Stirling in Scotland. Joe is an old competitor who I think I might have actually competed against you before me. I'm not sure. We definitely competed in Scotland around that same sort of era, but we both sort of fell away from it as well, I think. So it's hard to remember, but it's exciting to have you on the podcast, mate, because you've got a lot of knowledge and yeah, you're somebody who I've wanted to have on for a while. So welcome to the podcast, Joe.
Thank you, my man. An absolute pleasure to be on. And I believe we did compete together, mate, but I think you might have been a little bit taller than me. I think I was in the short ass category and I think you were in the tall person category. So I think that's what it was. It was the same show, the same day, but I think, yeah, I didn't quite qualify for the tall person,
fair enough.
category. I was in with the short asses, so I think that's what it was, dude.
I had in my head that we competed at the same time, but then I was like, I can't remember being on stage against Joe. Like, I just can't remember it. And I was like, did I just block that out because he was like so good?
Oh, mate, I don't think that's what it was. Yeah, mate, I think you were in the taller class, but I think that was that 2014? Oh no, 2015. I think that must have been. So good 5 or 6 years ago now, which is madness when you think about it.
Long time ago, mate, and obviously you've came a long way since then, and you've now rebranded your Team JP and as like the high performance coach, the coach's coach, right? So let's talk a little about that. Why is your passion in helping coaches rather than like the normal person who would train? Like me, for example, I train, Gen Pop or somebody who's got maybe 6 months experience, wants to take their physique to the next level. Your niche is coaches who want to take their body, brain, and business to the next level, right?
Yeah, 100%. So kind of like it started off the back of the competing in 2014, 2015. Like I kind of then started coaching a lot of competitors, guys and girls that wanted to do photo shoots and kind of wanted to take their like physique to the next level, I suppose, as it were. And then as things kind of evolved and as things grew, obviously I started working with kind of more personal trainers, more coaches. Obviously I was going through my own kind of personal journey as well with regards to trying to build my business, trying to still develop my physique while still trying to manage my social life, relationships and everything else. And what I started to find was that obviously I had plenty of challenges, plenty of obstacles, and often found as though that social media was just like this big highlight reel. And I was experiencing all these challenges that nobody was really talking about. And I would then have other personal trainers and coaches that I would then coach at the time that would be coming to me with exactly the same problems, exactly the same challenges. And I think as personal trainers, as coaches, as gym owners, we have this kind of thought process of wanting to kind of be a leader. We want to basically tell everybody that we've got our shit together and everything's fantastic. We're okay. We don't have any weaknesses. And, we're souped up, motivated and super pumped all the time and everything's great and we solve everybody's problems. And the more things started to grow and develop, I started to realize that actually, like fundamentally for me, like being brutally honest, like the passion for kind of helping people with just their physique development alone just started to kind of dwindle a little bit just because I'd spent 5-6 years doing it. And now this thought process of like understanding there are so many personal trainers and so many coaches that are struggling just now that are either in great shape and their business sucks, or they've got a phenomenal business and their body sucks as a byproduct, their health sucks. Or the other alternative that I see is that people are in great shape and they're doing quite well in business, but their balance, their social life, their relationships suck. And there's kind of this huge kind of disconnect between the three. And for me, it was just like looking at, well, we're industry leaders. We're at the forefront of helping society, helping people completely transform and change their lives. And I think there are so many personal trainers, coaches, gym owners that are currently not living in accordance to what we're currently preaching. And I wanted to make sure that now, like, my mission and my vision is to completely transform and change the entirety of the fitness industry, to change the coaching industry, and make sure that now, as personal trainers, coaches, gym owners, we are now thriving, excelling. We are looking after our energy. Our body shape complements the business. We're aware of the body, business, brain, and balance, the 4B framework that we work off, just so that we can now go and have an even bigger, greater impact and have a bigger influence on society, because fundamentally we're fighting a losing battle at the moment, because obviously with obesity, we've got mental health that's now continually on the rise. We are at the forefront of everything. So I need to make sure and want to make sure that it was going to be my priority with my experience and my own kind of personal challenges, that I was now going to be able to kind of really go and just provide coaches with the platform, the pillar, the awareness, the understanding that, do you know what? I get it. I've been there. I know exactly how you're feeling. And fundamentally, we need to make sure that we're looking after you across those 4Bs in order for you to be able to thrive, have more success, have more impact, and have more influence in the marketplace.
Yeah, man, that's killer. And it's something that I think is really important, obviously, being a family man and having physique goals and business goals all at once. Like, those 4Bs are boxes that really do need ticked. And this is stuff that we've spoke about on a WhatsApp call a few weeks ago, about finding that balance, because when you're pushing for the massive business growth, your relationships can suffer. When you're pushing for your physique growth, the business can suffer. It's like everything's all intertwined, but whenever you get everything nailed, you really feel unstoppable, and like, you're productive, you feel good in your body, you feel like your relationships are good, you're putting time into everything, and you're managing everything productively, which is, I guess, a lot of what you do with them. Be like, we're looking at people's productivity, their habits, their lifestyle, and just everything that goes into their day-to-day, really, right?
Yeah, massively. And I think it's also about getting clear on the fact that, do you know what, if you want to become the very best at something, like if you want to take your physique to the next level, like, you're going to have to be obsessed. You're going to have to drive a little bit more energy into that. And you're going to have to place a little bit more priority and focus more of your time, effort, and everything else into that physique development goal at this present moment in time. But then it's about having the awareness, having the intention, and having the ability to protect the downside, protect the risk with the other elements that are going on. Whereas, like, one of the biggest mistakes that I made was, like, I went all in on one thing, but then kind of didn't really have a kind of contingency plan or protective mechanisms in place for me to be able to guard the other important aspects of my life within kind of business, balance, and brain that I needed to look after. And then obviously that's when you get this huge disconnect. And that's obviously when you get kind of challenges. And that's when obviously problems kind of arise. So I think often it's just about kind of raising awareness and making sure that you're now clear on what do you need to double down on. And if you need to double down on that, how do you then protect and guard and look after the other kind of key core components? And we just understand that, like, balance is a sliding scale. And as long as you're aware enough to be able to know, right, okay, when you need to blast, when you need to cruise, when you need to place more focus into, let's say, for example, like we talked about this the other week, like now kind of like family time, balance time, and actually when you need to kind of pull back from the physique, or whether you need to push the physique a little bit, but have the awareness that balance is going to maybe suffer for the next few weeks, but that's okay. Because at least you've now accepted that, you're aware of that, and you're conscious of that. So I think often it's just about now being able to kind of look at the kind of full picture, I suppose. And you're just taking care of those kind of key result areas that are important to you in your life and your values. And then I think as well, exactly as you said, making sure that you've got the high performance habits, you've got the routines, you've got the protective armor built so that you can now guard yourself each and every day, because we're in a society now where we are continually doing more. There's more technology, there's more things for us to work on. We're being pulled from pillar to post. And the reality is, it's hard to say, it's easier to say yes right now than it is to say no. Like, saying no although that's so simple and easy, and it's going to save you a whole load of time, effort, and energy and money moving forwards, like sometimes it's the hardest thing for us as humans, because it seems so much easier just to agree to everything. Yeah, I can do that. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I think for us, it's just about kind of raising that awareness around how do you protect yourself so that you can then go and serve others to a greater degree and a greater capacity. Because I think otherwise there's this disconnect whereby we're then spending so much time serving everybody else, and you're then fundamentally at the bottom of the priority list.
Yeah, and I think like there's nothing wrong with saying no and like putting yourself first, right? Like how many times do we say, yes, okay, we'll go to a party or a meal out or some sort of social event, or yes, I'll do, like for example, this podcast, right? You agreed to it, and maybe like other stuff has come up, maybe you didn't really want to do it come today, right? We always say yes to things that may eventually come back to bite us in the ass a bit. I'm not saying, you obviously were really looking forward to the O Show podcast. This was the highlight of your week.
This is a non-negotiable, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. But like we always get pulled into other little things which can distract us from our focus. So it's whether a friend says, "Oh, can you meet me for a coffee today? I want to talk to you about something," or "Do you want to go for a drink on this night or a meal out?" When really that night is maybe the night that you would normally have with your missus, and your friends ask you to go for a beer, or you're going for a coffee meeting right in the middle of your sales calls or your check-ins, and it's like completely knocks you off your flow with work. So we always say yes to these things when really we should just learn to say, no, hang on, that doesn't suit me, that doesn't serve my higher purpose, and that doesn't fit in with my day. Like, instead you can just say, no, I can't do that, sorry, I've got a hectic day. Can you do this day when you know you're quieter, for example, and you've got maybe a 3-hour gap that you normally just chill and get a coffee anyway?
Yeah, again, mate, and it comes back down to your ability to protect your energy. Comes back down to you guarding yourself, looking after yourself, and making sure that you're now serving yourself, because there's a very fine line between self-care and service. And often I believe as kind of coaches, as business owners, as parents, we spend so much time then focus on service rather than self-care. And then again, we just kind of then all of a sudden get ourselves stuck into a rut. And in order for you to be able to like serve people to your greatest capacity, you need to make sure that you're thriving, you're firing on all cylinders. Like the amount of coaches that I know that are lacking in confidence, lacking in self-belief, that are lower in energy, that currently feel like frauds because they're not currently now doing the work and doing the things that they're telling their clients to do, is unbelievable. And the reality is the biggest thing that's stopping them from growing, excelling, and having a greater impact and getting better quality results is actually not their knowledge, is not their business systems, their sales, their marketing, or anything like that. It's them. And fundamentally, if they're able to get themselves right, their ability then to do more, be more, and achieve more fundamentally goes through the roof. And I think that's a huge thing, but we just get caught up in being busy all the time. And it's just that ability just to take a step back and just appreciate and get clear on, okay, what's the biggest, most important priority right now? What's going to help me move the needle the most? What do I actually enjoy doing that serves me? And actually right at this present moment in time, what are the very things that I need to be actioning, implementing, and doing that's going to be allowing me to work towards my vision, my mission, that I can get centered and clear on, and everything else can literally not get disregarded, but can go on a when I get time to do list, rather than a to-do list that's now as long as your arm and you feel overwhelmed, stressed out, and anxious that you've not been able to get it all done. And it's just that ability just to kind of, I suppose, like keep the main thing more so than anything else, but having that underlying awareness around everything else.
Yeah. And then do you have any tips, for example, let's keep it with Fit Pros because that's who your niche is, right? So we've got all these tasks we need to do. We need to do programs. We need to do marketing. We need to do check-ins. We need to do calls with prospective clients. What do you feel is the things that normally people struggle with? And have you got any tactics in terms of creating a list or managing that to-do list so it doesn't become as long as your arm and people don't get overwhelmed, frustrated, and like nearly ready to burn out, for lack of a better word?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously, like to start off with, I think firstly, it's kind of that thought process of overwhelm and people being incredibly reactive instead of proactive. And as simple as it is, just even being able to sit at the end of every single week or at the start of a new week and just kind of write down, right, okay, what do I want to accomplish this week? What do I want to achieve? What does success actually look like to me this week? What are the 1 to 3 things that I need to do that are going to move the needle, that are actually going to allow me to grow? What are the big picture thinking things? What's the 90%? What's the kind of 90% that's going to yield those kind of returns on investment? And the way in which I kind of break it down, this is what I do with all my guys, is that we basically have body, business, brain, and balance. And then basically, what are the 1 to 3 things within body, within business, within brain, within balance that you now need to focus on going into this week? And you might have something whereby at the moment, like for you, we were just talking just before we jumped on this call, like you've obviously got training, cardio, and obviously photo shoot consideration to take into account. So you know that your body box is actually going to maybe be a little bit bigger just now in comparison to what it's going to be in 5 or 6 weeks time. But again, even just visually being able to kind of see that and compartmentalize that is quite nice, because then you're starting to understand, right, okay, this is where I'm spending more time, effort, and energy. I can appreciate that. I know that my balance side is maybe a little bit neglected at the moment, but again, like there's going to be that transition shift once that priority of the photo shoot gets over and done with. So I think having that first and foremost, knowing what are the 1 to 3 key result areas you need to double down on and kind of those kind of compartments. And then making sure that you are now being aware of like your overall weekly energy, because I think we have this thought process that we always want to be like Duracell bunnies. Like we're always 100% on the go. You always want to be on top form every single day. And I think for like everybody, it's about understanding that you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. And sometimes like on these bad days, you feel guilty, you feel overwhelmed, you get anxious, you get caught up in social media in comparison to what other people are doing and they're crushing it, smashing it and doing amazing, which then makes you feel horrendous. But the reality is that person might be having a high energy, a productivity, fantastic day. And you just might be having a low energy kind of recovering, recuperation, recalibration kind of day. And then there's that kind of thought process then that just leads you to kind of spiral out of control because you now feel like you're not doing enough, you're not being enough, you're not actioning enough. And I think for you, or for us, sorry, it's about then getting clear on, right, okay, do you know what? I know that Monday, Tuesday is when I serve my clients the most. I know that I have my clients segmented on Monday and Tuesday because that's when my energy is at my absolute best. I know that on Wednesday morning, I'm useless. I know like Wednesday for me is a bit of a recalibration day because I've just spent Monday, Tuesday serving a lot of people, speaking to a lot of people, like actioning and giving out. So I know that Wednesday for me is a little bit of an extra sleep. I know that I go for a swim in a reservoir usually just to kind of go out and just do something completely different, disconnect from my phone. And then like Wednesday morning is a little bit more of a chill day and I don't really start my day then until 1 o'clock. Whereas before I would have felt stupidly guilty because on Wednesday morning I'd wake up, feel fatigued, feel tired, and then I'd be trying to hammer on as I normally would be, like I had been doing Monday, Tuesday. And all of a sudden then I'd procrastinate, not do the work, not do the necessary. And then that would lead to those kind of negative feelings instead of just preempting, accepting that my energy is great Monday, Tuesday, my energy is pretty terrible Wednesday morning. So I just need to make sure that I've got low level, low energy tasks placed in on Wednesday morning so that I'm now not kind of, got this, a disconnect between the two. And then Wednesday afternoon, I feel a little bit better. And just planning and structuring your week around high energy tasks. When are you at your best? When are you at your worst? Then how can you almost like reverse engineer your diary, your schedule, your week, your days around that, just so that you can make sure that they kind of match up quite nicely. I think that's another fantastic thing to do. Instead of trying to like micromanage every single hour of the day, you're now starting to see it as like the way in which I kind of highlighted it for my guys is like kind of red, amber, green. When are you at your best? When are you okay? When are you at your worst? Then how can you make sure your high energy tasks, your moderate energy tasks, your low energy tasks then can almost like kind of be placed within those segments and within those times. And that means that you're now starting to work in tune and in alignment with your body and with your brain and with where you are in comparison to working against it. And instead of thinking that hustling, grinding and working harder is better, you're now just starting to be a little bit more strategic. So there's just a couple of things that I advise coaches to do and everybody to do, which I think's had a hugely profound effect. And then I think the other thing, mate, is like the busier we get, the number one thing that goes out the window is sleep. Like everybody understands the importance of sleep. And I can't remember the exact statistic, and you might know it, dude, is like over the last kind of 20, 30 years, like as we've evolved and as obviously technology and artificial light and everything else has kind of grown and built, like I think we were once sleeping on average as a society, like between 8 and 10 hours a day. And I think I can't even remember the stat. I think it's something ridiculous, like 4 and 6. I can't remember the exact percentage that now it's dropped by, but we know that, when you grow your fitness business, I've been there. Like, I'm like, right, I'll hustle till midnight. I'll get up at 6 o'clock. And it's like, I'll just keep working. And then it's not until you burn out, you're fatigued, you're completely buggered, or other things start to kind of fall to the wayside, you then realize actually something needs to change. So protecting the sleep as well is probably the biggest thing that I see people neglecting.
Yeah.
And they're not managing appropriately because they've got all these thoughts and all these feelings going on, or they think they need to be doing more, and they'll work hard now and they'll reap the rewards later. Whereas actually, how can you consistently perform on a solid level for a long period of time rather than do a boatload just now and then be burnt out, be bollocks for 3 months and not be able to do anything and then have to recoup again?
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think there's a few things in that you said which ties in together. And what's going in my head is, you were talking about the reservoir as your chance to de-stress and get away from the phone for a bit on that recharge day. And also about this, this dramatic change in sleep, which is a lot down to our electronics and our essentialism around them, right? They're tethered to us at all times. And so how much is that aspect of social media and the constant notifications and attraction, even if the notifications are off or it's on do not disturb, you're still attracted to it. Like, you find yourself going to pick it up, like when you're meant to be doing something else, then you sort of catch yourself on. So how much is that holding people back from their potential as coaches, in your opinion?
Massively, mate. And I'll be completely honest as well. And say, like, I'll openly talk about this on social media. Like, I am by no means perfect. I'm I'm learning, evolving and developing and trying to continually improve myself. So there are certainly elements and areas that I still need to improve upon all the time. And I wholeheartedly accept that and enjoy the challenge of doing so. But I think certainly for me, kind of like number one that kind of changed the game for me, which I kind of started action a couple of years ago, was making sure that I just slept with my phone in like another room, or it actually is in the flat that I used to have. I used to leave it in the hallway. Now I basically leave it in the living room. And I initially started doing that first and foremost because I would literally, the alarm would go off and it would be so easy just to literally press snooze that I'd go back to bed. Whereas I started doing it because I thought, right, if my alarm's going off in the hallway, I've actively got to get up, got to go and turn it off, and then I'm up. So the likelihood of me staying up is then going to be way greater. Now I literally use it just from that thought process of I put it into a completely different room. It's out of sight, it's out of mind. And now I actually don't kind of think about it pre-bed first thing in the morning. So like that for me is obviously being like a kind of really good, like non-negotiable that I had. And actually around a month ago, I was actually starting some kind of like new like breathing techniques, meditation kind of practice just pre-bed. Just because, being honest, I was quite highly stressed, had a few different things going on. So I was trying to like integrate that in. And I was obviously having my phone in my room to basically use it for the guided breathing. And actually, even having it in my room as that kind of distraction and have it there, I found myself as like an inclination, just even starting to like go back into those poor habits of like, yeah, it's there. So I'm just going to kind of, fuck about on social media or whatever. And then since then, actually not having it has outweighed the benefits of the breathing and meditation, everything else that I thought would be, really advantageous. So I think that's a really good one to have in place, phone in a completely different room. And then I think secondly, just thinking about when are you going to be doing your deep work, leave your phone in a different room, because we can have all the willpower in the world, but the reality is if your phone's there, you're procrastinating, you know that you've got some deep intentful work that you need to action, you're always going to kind of probably resonate or radiate towards it. So if it's kept in a separate room, that works incredibly well. And then I think for me, mate, just having like things that I do on a daily basis, walk my dog, number one, and then swim in the reservoir, number two, and then kind of like assault bike sessions for me, and number three are like my kind of three things that I do to get in a state of flow, that I can't think about anything else, and that my phone obviously is just nowhere to be seen, that I find is kind of been really, really useful. So just having like some non-negotiable times where you do just leave your phone in a different place, I found has also been beneficial.
Yeah. And when you say in a state of flow, now I know because I've read numerous books that refer to the state of flow, but some people might not know exactly what you mean. So talk to us a little bit about that, about what that means and why it's so important.
I think for me, mate, it's about like we have this concept of like wanting to be able to switch, like wanting to be able to switch off. And I think to like coin our mentor's phrase, Phil Graham, is like, I'm not a light switch. I don't need to, I don't just switch off and on. It's like understanding that we need to be able to like appreciate that if your passion is your profession is your passion. I think sometimes it's about realizing that actually, do you know what? Yeah, like you fully disconnecting isn't something that you need to potentially do, because actually the tasks that you're doing on a daily basis energize you. So like my thought process with regards to behind kind of getting into it like a state of flow is just being able to do a task or do something whereby you're so ingrained and so focused on that task that you're unable to think about anything else. So like for me, it's like people would potentially perceive like us doing the assault bike, which is the worst / the best thing ever. I think you'll agree that it's like Marmite. It's yeah, either you love it or you hate it. Well, or you love it and hate it at the same time. But for me, like the assault bike for me is getting into a state of flow, because my heart is beating out my chest. My legs feel like they're about to fall off. My brain feels like it's about to explode. And like within that moment of time, within that half an hour, 45 minutes, I cannot think about anything else. Like the only thing that I can think about is that task in hand. Like to other people, it might be painting. To other people, it might be reading. It might be weightlifting, it might be training. It might be swimming. Like there can be a multitude of different things that you can do within your day. And like, even for me, like dog walking as well, like, yes, I think about business and work and everything else like that, but that's kind of like a period of time where I can almost get into a state of flow where I feel creative because I'm out in the woods, out in the wilderness and out in the countryside. So I think, state of flow is like, to me, dude, I don't know whether it means the same thing to you. It's just, doing a task and doing something that you're so ingrained and focused on that one thing that you just actually can't think about anything else because of the energy that it's taken for you just to focus on the present.
Yeah, 100%, mate, 100%. And I think we spoke before about those assault bikes being your like energizer, where like you feel really, really good after that. So sometimes you would do that prior to doing a big task or something as well, to sort of give you that bit of energy for the day. Is that right? Or did I pick that up wrong?
Yeah, no, massively. And even yesterday, like I did a pretty hefty assault bike session, and then my missus Leanne, and we went out for a walk, and then we had some dinner. She's like, "What is wrong with?" Like, she's like, "What have you taken?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You are literally high on life this evening." I'm like,
"Oh, really?"
Yeah, and so it's funny you should say that, because she was like, "You're like mental this evening. What's wrong with you? Chill out. You're like a child." It was just because like the high that I had just from that assault bike session, whilst it killed me, off the back of it, I just felt absolutely incredible. And I think like it's about realizing that sometimes people think that like re-energizing comes in the form of like sitting and watching telly, or just switching off and sitting on a sun lounger. And sometimes that might be it and will be for certain people. But for me, like actually feeling re-energized comes through like the assault bike sessions. Me and you having this conversation just now, like I don't know about you, but like I walk away from this conversation not feeling drained, but feeling energized and ready to rock and roll and inspired and motivated and excited. And then other things for me, I like listening to podcasts, audiobooks. Like they are things that like almost like re-energize and restore me.
Yeah.
And they're the things that I need to have each and every day in my life that actually almost like keep me going. And I don't know about you, whether you'll be the same. It might mean like spending time with your daughter and stuff like that. For me, it's spending time with my dog. Like I actively really enjoy. And that is like my rest. That is my recovery. Like I don't need to sit and watch telly for half an hour or whatever. Sometimes I do, but majority of time I'll be doing those tasks that make me feel better.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you flipped something when we spoke last in my head, because we were talking about, keeping my productivity high, especially on days where you've got big check-in days or just mad flow days where we need to be on it. And I says, bro, but like, I just procrastinate. I find myself picking up my phone and scrolling. And you said, which is something I never really thought about before, but you said, yeah, bro, but maybe that 5-10 minutes where you pick up and you just mindlessly scroll is your re-energizer, where you've done 5 to 10 check-ins, and then all of a sudden you just have a scroll, you reply to some messages, you chill out a bit, and then you're ready to attack the next block of check-ins. And I never really thought about that. I always thought of it as, if I need to have a break, I need to take myself away from the laptop completely and, not be sitting here. But like literally me just sitting here and going scroll might be enough just to recharge me, and I can knock out another 5 check-ins without even leaving the desk, if it's a 5-minute scrolling session.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. And I think it's about realizing that we just go, as humans, we go between spending energy and renewing energy. And it's just your ability to know, right, okay, when you like, you need to, blast cruise, I suppose. It's like, we need to spend energy, renew energy. And again, like renewing energy can be in a multitude of different like forms, as we kind of talked about. And I think it's just about respecting and looking after that and just appreciating that sometimes one of the biggest things that I've struggled with is always feeling guilty for like kind of doing those tasks or doing those things, or, you know, maybe scrolling. And sometimes, you know, I'm sure you'll agree, dude, like you do just scroll and you are just scrolling because you're procrastinating and putting off the things that you know you need to be doing. But other times, like you will just literally maybe go and do something like that for 5 minutes. And it is just like something that's quite mindless. You don't have to think about it. And you can almost just switch off. It's a bit like when you put some crappy TV on and it's like an easy watch. You don't really have to concentrate, but you kind of get the gist of what's going on. But it's not really focused. Like sometimes like that kind of like mindless TV just allows you just to kind of get away. And I think sometimes that's also kind of what we need. And sometimes we feel bad about it. I certainly know that I have and still do at points as well. But it's just about appreciating that, like 20% of what you do will you know, yield kind of 80% return. And then the 80% is a 20%. So as long as you're getting those 20% done, you're clear on the key result areas that you need to focus on for that week. Yeah. And they need to go into your kind of high energy tasks or your high energy points of the week. Then, you know, everything else is, you know, free, flexible. It's kind of, you know, down and up to you. And I think, as long as you're then consistently doing that on a weekly basis, and that's compounding, you really then start to move the needle more so than anything else. And that ability to kind of have that push-pull, I think, is important for longevity and sustained success, rather than thinking, I just need to hustle, grind, and work as hard as I possibly can until I get to this point. And when I get to this point, I'm going to be happy. I'm going to have this, I'll do this, and I'll do this. Like the reality is you'll probably get to X goal or get to X point. You're probably not going to be fulfilled. You're going to have made a lot of sacrifices. You're probably going to feel pretty terrible. There's going to be huge anticlimax. Like, I'm sure you will agree with me, dude. Like standing on stage as an example is like a massive anticlimax. You get there, you do it the next day, you're like a lost puppy. You kind of like don't really, and you don't go through depression, but like you go through like this state of like just feeling a little bit flat for a while afterwards. And you're like kind of questioning what were you doing? And when you look at it, it wasn't standing on stage, it was the process and the journey. So I think it's just also about getting clear on, okay, like people are like, when I get to this goal or I attain this amount of income or I get to this level in my business, or once I can work hard to get X amount of clients, then I'll start to look after myself, or I'll then do this or I'll then do that. But it's like, well, the reality is, why can't you now prioritize and look after you and still work towards that goal? You'll probably get there quicker, more efficiently. And actually, when you get there, you're not going to have made a whole host of other sacrifices whereby you're not going to be buggered, burnt out, fatigued, and now in a position or a place whereby you're now going to have to spend 3 months completely recovering and looking after something that you've neglected. And now the very thing that you've just built is probably now slowly degrading back down the way.
Yeah. And in terms of, if we're going to give like rapid fire advice, Joe, because this can be applied to a CEO, it can be applied to somebody who works in a cafe, in terms of performing at your best, like say let's go like really deep. Like what's the 2 top tips you could give people to take away from this right now to make progress towards finding that balance, or finding more like a better energy management, or just getting that overall good feeling again out of life?
I think there could be so many, but number one, I'd say would be like set intent. And I think this was something that I read in High Performance Habits by Brendan Butchart. And it's this thought process of like, when you go into a room or you're going to do a certain task, who do you want to be? What do you want to deliver? What type of impact do you want to have on people? What energy do you want to give? How do you want those people to leave? You know, you feel when you spend time with that person, how do you want them to feel? What impact and influence do you want to have had on them in that period, in that certain time frame? And I think sometimes when we go from task to task, it's easy just to stay in like this same mindset, instead of actually just taking the opportunity just between tasks to kind of like recalibrate. And then go, right, okay, now going into this podcast, who do I want to be? What do I want to deliver? What energy do I want to bring? How do I want to be perceived? And that can often be like a really, really good way to think, especially when you go from sitting in the office to then maybe going downstairs and seeing the family. it's literally a walk down the stairs, and you can quite often carry what's happened here into other aspects of your life. Whereas if you can just take 60 seconds, a couple of minutes, just to kind of almost like break it down, get clear on kind of what you want to take into that room and what you don't want to take into that room, and set that intention, I think that can have a massive impact. And then I think the other thing, mate, is finding that higher purpose, I suppose. Like for me, it's like, what are you doing all of this for? Like what, and one thing that always really stands out for me is like, start with the end in mind by 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. When you get to the end of your life, like what do you want to have achieved? What impact do you want to have had? What was that vision? What was that mission? What did you want to work towards? And what regrets do you not want to have? And I think for me, mate, it's just about that, having that thought process of just making sure that that higher purpose of what I'm wanting to work towards is so big and so great, and it's so much bigger than just me.
Yeah.
But it's something that inspires me, radiates me, gives me plenty of energy, and gives me this thought process of like, it's like that kind of self-actualization, I suppose. It's so much bigger and so much greater that I'm now wanting to work towards. And it's so much greater than my kind of like deficiency needs or kind of growth needs, I suppose, that I'm now really wanting just to kind of continue to pursue to do more. Because I think it's not until you really get clear on that, mate, you'll be able to obviously talk far better than I am, like, especially when you've had your daughter, like now probably like your ability to kind of like go above and beyond, and that purpose is probably now so much greater and bigger than probably what it once was. And your ability now to kind of operate at a far higher level is far more meaningful. Yeah. Because of the bigger, because of that bigger purpose. So, dude, have you found a transition with that?
Yeah, 100%, mate. Like as soon as Evie was born, it was like something went in my mind. That's when I started looking at business coaching. That's when I started to think, right, I'm gonna stop fucking around with this now. Like, I've got a daughter. Like, we also don't own a house over here because we obviously pumped all our savings into moving over here. I was like, right, daughter and like security of a home. Like, that's the two things that are gonna motivate me every single day. I mean, the thing is, and me and Hester were joking about it, about, having a daughter, you got to pay for a wedding at some stage as well, right? And obviously the daughter decides on the price range on that, but even that's a motivator of down the line of 20 years from now, 30 years from now, like all these little things that you need to think about now, where it's not just you. And I guess that's the thing about prep. Prep is very selfish in what I'm going through at the minute. And same with business, we've got to be selfish with that sometimes. But as long as we remember the end goal, the prep is to help with the business in terms of the marketing and the photos and stuff. It's also, I'm dealing with clients too. The business side, if I've got to like do a podcast late, or I've got to do a sales call or a client support call or whatever it is, like, it's very selfish in that you're saying, right, I've got to do this for me and for the business. But really, when you remember your why, it's so that then you can buy that house, you can buy that wedding dress, you can do, if you work late tonight, you might be able to have tomorrow where you can go to the park and sit and chill in the swings for an hour with your daughter, right? And it's remembering that, I guess, they're your why, and you've got to realize that those late nights, those early mornings, those calls, everything else will be worth it. And like you say, it's just finding that balance, right? And just always relaying it back. If something feels like shit and you don't want to do it for whatever reason, whether you're procrastinating, you're like, no, hang on, if I just knock this work out now for the next hour, then I've got time to go down and have dinner with Evie, or I can do the bath tonight, or whatever it is. So without even like overly thinking about it, it's always there in the back of your mind. It's like drilled into your subconscious. And it's probably the same with you, where you're working with coaches, and as well with your mission, it's quite big as well, bro, because you're helping coaches get better so they perform better. Each coach might have between 10 and 50 clients, maybe even more if they're a high enough profile coach. So you're indirectly, if you've got, say, like nice even numbers, say if you've got 10 coaches, all who have 10 clients, so that's 100 people who you're impacting just by your why and your mission, right? So when we've got that in the back of our brain, it's fucking massive, right?
Yeah, huge. And I think, mate, that's a massive, massive, massive driver for you to continually force to kind of level up, I suppose. And again, like, everybody's kind of why purpose is completely different. But as long as you can start to get clearer on that, you then actually have something that's now almost going to act as a compass that's going to help you work towards it. And again, when it comes back down to then kind of you saying yes and you saying no, you're also then far clearer on actually what is serving and supporting that, and actually what is derailing and taking me away from that. And I think that massively help as well. So yeah, I would definitely say kind of I suppose I could talk about sleep and nutrition and training being really important, but I think we all know that like it's setting intention between tasks, knowing who you want to be. And then also for me, that higher purpose, like knowing actually what are you actually like doing all this for? Because I think often, I think as Tony Robbins talks about, like you'll often just, a lot of people in life will just get into like a raft, a life raft, will kind of poodle on down the stream, and it's not until you get to a massive waterfall or something then starts to happen or goes wrong, do you then think, shit, I better start paddling back upstream and then strategically plan which way I'm now going to go. Whereas actually if you got in and you actually had a kind of a course of action that you were now going to take, there was going to be some type of roadmap that you were going to start to work towards that was just going to give you those kind of coordinates, I suppose, as a framework that you could then obviously kind of like live in accordance to with regards to your decisions, your actions, your habits. That's when actually you can then really start to get clearer on what's important to you and what's not important to you. And I think that's something for me over the last kind of like 12 months has definitely started to kind of allow me to shape and mold, like where, who, what I want to become and why. And the influence that I then want to kind of have, I suppose, and making that so much bigger than, somebody getting a six pack or, a personal trainer kind of like making more income as an example. It's like what impact and how many lives are they then changing as an example?
Yeah, that's massive. And I think that's a really good place to end it, because we've got loads of little nuggets here. And if anyone's watching the video and sees me scribbling stuff down, it's so that I know where to potentially clip if I'm going to put any of this on social media. So, mate, that's awesome. I think there's tons in here. Can you please let people know how to get in touch with you if they are either coaches or just a normal person who has these issues and wants to talk to you more? Maybe they want to have a consultation about the stuff we talked about in more depth and how it might apply to them. How do people get in touch with you?
Yeah, dude, I appreciate that. And the best way would probably just be on Instagram, which is Joe Parish, or on Facebook, it's Joe Parish, the coach's coach.
Perfect, mate. Perfect. And mate, there's loads of little nuggets in here. I can't wait to get it up. It's going to be a couple of weeks just because we've got a queue. I'm like batching them. It's all about being productive. I've done 2 today, so that means I've got content now for the next couple of weeks. Whenever I do need to do more deep work, I can then focus my Thursdays where there's no podcasts on, and especially the back end of prep. I want to have these loaded up so I don't have to jump on when I'm like pure Skeletor face as well, right?
Then I've got the ability to concentrate for more than like 10-15 minutes before they need a nap.
Yeah, exactly, bro. Exactly, mate. But it's been awesome. I really appreciate you being on, mate. And we will obviously be in touch. Me and you are in the same business group. We're in the same network. We talk a lot on social media, so we'll be following this up, no doubt, with some messages back and forth. But I really appreciate you coming on, buddy. And guys, please go follow Joe. Please tag us both if you like this episode. Screenshot it, put it up on your social media, let us know, because this is a different sort of podcast to what I normally pump out. But if you enjoy it, I will keep getting quality guests on like Joe, or perhaps even line up a second interview with Joe to follow up on more in-depth strategies as well. So please tag us, let us know what you think. And Joe, mate, have a great day. Thank you for coming on again, and I really appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks for listening to The O Show with your host, Oren McCory. If you liked this episode, then please subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening and share this on your social media. We'll see you on the next episode for more no-nonsense advice to help you supercharge your efforts in the gym, in the kitchen, and most importantly, in your head. See you then.